looking at how to use Nikto, all right, to scan for any vulnerabilities that we might find on the site. So as you can see, I already have it locked to my favorites here on my dock because I use it quite a lot. But to launch it, it's really very simple. Just open up your terminal and just hit in Nikto. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the help menu because it is very, very important here so that I can explain what each of the commands are and what they do, and more specifically the commands that we're going to be looking at in this video. All right. So let me just open that up. And as you can see, we've got right from the beginning, we can see that it's sorted really, really well. And this is why I really like Nikto. Now, some of you might be asking, or you might have this question in your mind. Well, you showed us about WordPress scan. Doesn't this just do the exact same thing? Well, WordPress scan is only designed to sniff out vulnerabilities on a WordPress website. The good thing about Nikto is it works on any web server or website for that matter. And you know what, once you know that, it's really, really fantastic because it works on any site or any web server, as we have already seen. So let's look at what these commands do. Now, some of the most important commands are the DB check, which checks for databases, the format, which allows us to change the output format. More specifically, the help menu, which is specified here, which is again is great because it gives you help. We then have the host, very, very important, allows you to select the host, which without this command you would not be able to use Nikto, pretty much. All right. You then have plugins to list all the plugins. You then have the output, which allows you to output your results into a file. Very, very important if you're a penetration tester to always have documentation of all the scans you're performing. You have no SSL, which disables using SSL. The port, which we're going to be using in this video, we're going to be specifying to use the default port, which is port 80, which I'll show you how to specify. You can also change the port if you want to, which, would make a lot of sense unless you're performing some serious scan that is more specialized. You then have your force SSL mode on the port, which is not that important. You don't come across that a lot. And you can update it and you can print the plugin and database versions if you want to. All right, so let's get started with the commands that we're going to be using. So I'm just going to clear this out and we're going to get started now. So if we remember correctly, we're going to use Nikto, and to specify the host, we use the H command. And after this, I would use I would select the website address or the domain for that matter, or the IP address as I'm going to be doing now. So 192.168, whoops, 0.1.108, and I've selected that I've used the command, the H command, which means I'm using, that's the host. I now want to specify the port, which is the only other command that I'm going to be using. So we use the P. And we're specifying the port, which is port 80. And let's hit enter and let's see what vulnerabilities we can find here. All right, so I'm going to hit enter. And it's going to detect the server, which is Apache, which we already know, as we've looked at this previously. And there we are. It's already got the cross-site scripting protection header is not defined. That's a very, very huge vulnerability. We'll be looking at how to exploit all of these, vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting using tools like Burp Suite and file upload vulnerabilities, all of that good stuff. Because a lot of you guys have been asking me about bug bounty hunting and how do I get started, because hacking on the web is a different ball game, to be honest. It's quite tricky because every site is configured differently. All right, so it's returned the results and you can look at all the vulnerabilities that it was able to find out. So the WordPress script reveals the installed version, which is, as you can see, that looks like a CVE version. Cookie WordPress. So yeah, there's not a lot of important stuff that we were able to gather from here. Again, it would be much more wise to scan a WordPress site with WordPress scan, but for other websites, this is fantastic. So that is how to scan for vulnerabilities that exist on a web server, in this case, a WordPress site. Now, let's look at one more command, which is the output command, which is very, very important. So we're going to try and output this on the desktop. So I'm just going to change my directory to my desktop. So like so, and let me just clear the terminal. So we're going to use the same command, which is Nikto H, which is the host 192.168.1.108. We're specifying the port, which is port 80. And now we have to specify the fact that we are using the output command. So O, and we specify the file name, which we're going to say is, let's see, let's just call it results. Let's just call it Nikto results. Results, always good to name your documentation appropriately. And now we want to specify the file type, which in this case we can just say we use the command F, capital F, to specify the file type, the file extension. In this case, I'm just going to select .txt just to keep things basic, and I'm going to hit enter. It's going to start the scanning process. And once the scanning process is complete, it's going to save, it's actually saving the data right now in real time as it's performing the scan. Alright, so just give it a few seconds to complete the scan, and we'll be able to see whether or not the information was stored in the file that we specified it to be stored in. Alright, we'll be looking at all of these vulnerabilities as we move along, but the first thing is to understand what we've got and how to gather information about a web server or a website. And this is the basic, just getting started with it. It's very, very good to get accustomed to the tools. Alright, so as you can see, it's completed. And if we just check the desktop here, we have the Nikto results. There we are. Fantastic. If I just open up the file, and it has stored all the information. Very, very important that you store this information. It acts as a good way of showing, or it acts as documentation, and that is very important, especially for a penetration tester. Alright, so that is going to be it for Nikto.